Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nevada Women's Film Festival, program number 15, our live Q&A portion. My name is Samantha Rodriguez, and I'm helping run the behind the scenes with my partner, Jemsen Bollozos. We are both co-founders of the art collective Eccentric Artists, and we are serving as the festival's executive committee this year. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the moderator for today's program, Dr. Heather Addison. And Dr. Addison had joined the Department of Film at UNLV as the chair in 2016, and she also serves on the board of directors for the Nevada Women's Film Festival. So Dr. Addison, thank you for joining us, and please take it away.
Hello, everyone out there in question audience land. Dr. Addison with you today, and I am so pleased to be the host for this session for this wonderful documentary, Alone Together, co-directed and co-written by Maya Tiberman and Kinneret Hai-Gilor. We have one of our director writers with us now, so drum roll, please. Maya Tiberman, if you would reveal yourself, that would be lovely. Yay, hello. And welcome, coming to us from across the world at approximately 9 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about this really incredible film. I guess I'd like to start by asking you just about the genesis of the project and the impact that you hope it may have on audiences.
Wow, okay. The project started when Kinneret and I we met as very young mothers, and we heard of this association called the First Hug. We were really keen to find out what it meant, and we started the research. We met many volunteers, and our main purpose and what interested us mostly was to understand what was the motivation of these volunteers. I mean, apart from, of course, giving a hug to a baby and helping him survive, understanding what brought these women, mostly women, but also men, and we wanted to. We found out actually that the hug worked both ways. We understood that these persons were very resilient, and they had this special resilience, and we wanted to find out what held them in this very special volunteering. So understanding that this hug works both ways and works very dramatically on the life of those who hug as well, not just the babies. I think that was the main motivation, and the act of hugging for me is like understanding that a hug, just touching someone you know or you don't know, makes a difference, and changes how we feel, changes how it develops. This is a really special understanding for me.
And I think the timing of the film is very interesting, coming out now at this moment as we emerge from a pandemic in which we literally were restricted from hugging each other. I'm seeing people now that I couldn't hug for a year and a half, including relatives. So did the pandemic factor in at all? Like, you were working on this pre-pandemic? I know it's out at festivals now, but what was the timeline for working on the project?
Well, the whole timeline was about 6 years. We finished the
6
film.
years, yes, pretty standard for any feature film. Yes, okay.
But we finished it before the pandemic started.
Oh.
Yes, I can tell you that recently I was in a screening here in Israel, and an elderly woman came up to me when the film finished, and she said, she was with tears. She said, you don't know what it means to me or for us, for people even our age, not to be hugged, not to be touched at this period of time. And I was really moved, because I understood that this is not only about the babies, and not only about these babies that need to survive. Not only them, all of us.
Yeah.
All of us need this hug.
I think that, a clear point that the film makes is that hugging is not optional. And, it might be critical for those infants. Like if they're not held in those first few weeks of life, they may perish. But, later in life, those of us who aren't getting hugs, we may be dying 1,000 small deaths, sort of in decline because we can't make that close physical connection. So, I mean, it's not only a relevant message at any time, but particularly at this moment, it's almost like a perfect storm in a way for the relevance of this film. And I felt that too as I was watching it. Let me shift gears a little bit. So I noticed that the crew has such total access to the neonatal hospital wards and the newborn babies, who are, of course, very young, very vulnerable subjects, almost the most vulnerable subjects a documentarist could select. What were the shooting parameters you were given by the hospitals, and what were your goals? You've talked about this a little bit already, but what were your goals in portraying the babies and the symbiotic connection between them and the volunteer huggers, each mutually benefiting from close human contact? So how did you negotiate access to these very young and vulnerable subjects?
Well, in the beginning, we really wanted to show both sides, and we wanted to tell the stories of the babies as well, not just the volunteers. We wanted to show how the hug affects babies, of course, and we found out that it was an impossible mission, because we could not shoot the babies, we could not show the faces of the babies. We could, and you see that in the film, that we had to find creative angles and well, show them together, but not show the babies. It was a challenge, but I think it made us more in focus on the story of Ravit. And it was good for us, because we then understood that she really is the story here. And so the challenge became like a good thing for us.
And so how like, even just like in terms of the actual guidelines for shooting, like how long would you work with a volunteer and a baby? Like how would you just shoot for a few minutes or an hour, or how did you handle that?
We were able to come and be with the Ravit during the whole 3 hour.
So they're 3-hour shifts normally with the
Right,
okay.
Right. And so we were given that time, and it took us a lot of time to get to know the nurses and the doctors, and they knew us. They trusted us, and this was a good starting point that we could come in. And Ravit is a very loved, it's a very lovable character in the hospital, and so it's also a good door opener for us. And
so yeah, that brings me to Ravit Reichman. We obviously get a very intimate and nuanced portrait of her. How did you select her as a subject, and what was your approach to shooting her?
As I said, we met many volunteers, and we wanted at first to show, to tell a few different stories of three women, maybe a man. We kind of collected different stories, and when we met Ravit, we understood right away that we had this special lady here, and we need to. She took the whole focus from our point of view, and she was talking to the camera as if, or she was not talking to the camera, but she felt very, very comfortable with the camera. So this made it easy for us. And she had so many stories to tell. She knows so many people. She has many and different aspects of her life. Like she seems very cheerful and very vibrant. But then underneath, we right away understood that there's a certain sadness. There's a certain maybe secrets in her life that we will need to reveal. And I think this is what made us fall in love with Ravit. And she's truly is amazing. Well, I truly connect to her.
I agree, and I have more to say about Ravit, but let me kind of at a more general level say, like, the film is a very slow and careful study of its subjects, and that makes it, in my view, quietly and very powerfully rewarding. So what's your approach to documentary style, particularly for this project? In other words, in your view, what makes a good documentary, and how did you apply those principles here?
Wow. That's a good question. I think that a good documentary is one that you can somehow connect. You can somehow find yourself in the world of the person you see or the people you see, and it tells you something about your life, something you can take home with you, and it will maybe change or put a light on something you want to do in your life, to change in your life, or to suddenly see something you did not see before. And I think that for me is what makes a good documentary.
Yeah, the pace of this, like, my first instinct is just to call it slow, but then it's like the camera sort of sits there, and like as the moment kind of unfolds, like there are kind of layers of meaning that are revealed. So it's almost a reminder that, that this kind of languid pace can lead to a depth and a complexity that just aren't accessible when it's, even when you're talking about a doc, if it's just cut. And I feel like I, as a viewer, needed to have the patience to experience the film, and then that was like its ultimate reward. So I didn't count the length, I didn't time the lengths of the shots, but it felt like it was just like a lot of long takes in the film. Am I correct on that, or am I just imagining it?
Yeah, I agree. I think it was intended, but in some way to actually put you in this mode of just being there, being with the baby. It doesn't talk. It's not. There's no conversation there, but you just slowly find the magic of this special hug. This is I think what we were trying to show.
So, I mean, I think Ravit, she's so interesting, you know, and at first I thought the film was about one thing, like about the hugging program to save, you know, infants, but it's really about so many things, primarily Ravit, who I think reveals the, you know, the complexities of life in middle age. She's altruistic, she's heroic, she's strong, but, you know, she's also lonely, longing to connect with children, you know, as a volunteer for the hugging program, or perhaps as a foster parent. She's also interested maybe in finding a romantic partner. So do you feel that she's representative of, you know, women around her age in Israel? Is she unique? You know, what about around the world? Like, what's your sense of what she has to say to maybe women in that kind of age range, either in Israel or around the world?
Well, I think in Israel is a society appreciates motherhood as the most important role of women. And there are not too many women who are not married, who don't have children. There are, but it's not very common, and it feels like you're expected to go in this path. And of it, I think what's so special about her is that she does find her unique path. It's a very nonconformist way of expressing her motherhood. The motherhood she cannot have by her own baby, but she finds her path and she finds her true self. And this is, I think this is what makes her so bold and so inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, in the film, so like one of her greatest regrets, you know, which she expresses multiple times, is that she doesn't have children. She recounts her medical history. She chose a hysterectomy to treat painful endometriosis. So essentially, and she says this directly, she chose her own health over the potential to have babies, a decision that her friends and family members, you know, didn't necessarily support because they thought maybe she could just live with it, you know. So in presenting this moment, like, what were you hoping to convey about society's pressure for women to be mothers? I know you've expressed a little bit of that already.
I think that Ravit is a good example of, as I said, someone who chooses to treat herself before treating others, and to actually give herself the life she wants. And I know it's very complicated to say because she did want children. If you ask her today, she will tell you that she wished she did have children, but in the end she did choose this way, and she did find her way of she found out that when she gives others, this is what makes her the happiest person. This is what fulfills her. And I think it's a new kind of motherhood. For me, it was a really amazing to understand that you don't you don't need children, you don't necessarily need to be a mother to feel that you can give, that you have something to give. You have so much to give to this world. Each one of us has something to give.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack in that, because I think, you know, one of the reasons that, you know, societies maybe place or put such pressure on young people to have children is that, of course, if no one has children, that's the end of the human race. So that's sort of a fact, like someone's got to have children. And then there's this whole like ideological framework that is brought to bear on people that idealizes like motherhood and fatherhood. So we'll choose it, you know, of our own free will. And Ravit's situation is interesting because in a sense, she rejects motherhood because she says, actually, my health and comfort is more important than the potential future babies I might be able to have. But she also, in some ways, is still trying to, and consciously or unconsciously perhaps, prove her worth by, loving babies and being really, supportive of babies and this kind of, this motherhood by proxy. So she is a mother to many babies, to the people that she has helped. So as a woman, she's still kind of serving and supporting others, particularly babies. And, of course, many of us are also, doing that. But I wonder, like, what about for that woman who says, actually, I'm not interested in babies. I have other plans. Like, I wonder, I don't know if you have a sense, and I think it's outside the scope of your film in some ways, but it kind of comes up because your film is addressing the case in which a woman who can't have children kind of longs to do that and connects, with babies and potentially with foster children. But what about the woman or man who just has no interest in children? What would society's reaction be, like specifically in Israel? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can understand. I can relate. It's not very, as I said, it's not very common in Israel, but there are people who say that this is not what they want in life. I can really understand. I can really see that not everyone needs to have children. It's perfectly fine, to my opinion. And there's so many ways to fulfill yourself. And I think Ravit is also, she's not just working with babies, she's working in this.
That's a good point. She's the soup kitchen in Tel Aviv. Yeah.
She's also a medical clown. She goes to hospitals and makes
You're kidding. Oh, did you have footage of that? Or what?
We did. We had to choose. We had so many things with Ravit. She's really all over the place. She has so many stories. We had to choose. But we had some good medical clown.
Well, I mean, Ravit is extraordinary in so many ways, because, so, I mean, for me, the most heartbreaking moment in the film is when she decides not to go to the informational meeting about foster parenting. She tells the woman on the phone, I've changed my mind. So she's like this resilient woman who spent 25 years in the military, manages to advocate for everyone around her, but then she's still subject to self-doubt. Like when her friends and colleagues warn her about the inconveniences and maybe even dangers of like fostering, quote, damaged children. And that creeps in and she listens, despite the fact that she says again and again, she really wants to have a child. And she gets very positive encouragement from a social worker. And the final shot of the film reassures us that she's still going to have those newborns. She'll still be making that connection. But I felt this, real, almost profound sadness for her. And it was kind of a reminder that no matter how strong we are, we're all subject to the forces and opinions that are continually surging around us. Do you think that could be a particular danger or factor for like middle-aged single women? Are they perhaps more subject to that, for that self-doubt to creep in? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, specifically for Ravit, it was not. I feel that the decision was not made. She wasn't too much pressured by others. She felt that if she will take a child home, she will not be able to continue volunteering. This is what I think. I feel that this is what made the change. She wanted to continue in what she loves and what she does. And she gives others, and she didn't want to just focus on this one child. She wanted to continue doing what she does, and I think this is the big revelation okay, this is what I do in my life. I'm worthy. I have something and that maybe others don't have. I can give so many people around me. And
so it's really a decision. Yeah, I like that reading of it, and that feels right to me, that she makes that decision because it allows her to continue doing this very valuable and powerful thing that she's already doing. Although I did feel sad for her because, of course, the babies, she connects with them, but of course she's always moving on to the next baby, and a child would be a chance for her to have a longer term arc and relationship with someone, in her life who would, be there when she comes home, who would look to her. So in some ways that's a loss, but I completely understand what you're saying. And I'd like to take this moment to also, which I should have said earlier, everyone, sorry to everyone in the audience. If you have questions, please post them and we're happy to address those. Someone decided to go ahead and do that. Thank you. We have a question here, which I'm going to go to now, if that's okay with you, Maya. Does Jewish history play into the pressure in Israel of women to have babies?
again, I'm sorry.
So I think that the audience member is wondering, does Jewish history, and of course we know that there was a lot of tragedy involved, does that play into the pressure for women to have babies in Israel? Because it's sort of like you're trying to basically generate the new generations, and it's kind of a very sober and important responsibility.
Yes, I think it's true that our society, our Jewish and Israel in particular, are expected to have children and to fill the earth. This is what also it's written in the Bible, and like to this is one of our purposes, like as people on this planet, as I understand. So yes, I think Judaism encourages having babies, encourages the family and structure.
Yeah, and I actually think, this is sort of an ancillary subject, but world population decline, everyone. Actually, I think it's, if you've all been keeping up with some of the, the research and recent statistics, it's an issue all across the world, that women are not necessarily choosing to have children, and many countries don't have even a replacement rate of birth. So they're coming up with this like upside down triangle where there are people, we're all aging, but people who are reaching older ages in their lives, and there aren't enough young people to kind of support the weight of what society needs. And so I think there's going to be increasing pressure brought to bear on young people to have children, or at least to have children at a rate that allows countries to maintain their health, socially, economically, politically. Maybe many people are aware that China is now opening up opportunities for women to have babies. They've said now it's okay, but women aren't jumping in to do it because there are too many obstacles and financial burdens. So I think it's a complex situation, not only in Israel, but across the world. And of course, there are nuances depending on the country. But globally, I think it's something we're going to be wrestling with over the next 20 to 50 years. Women choosing to have children or not, and what that means for us, across the entire earth. All right, so let me move from the entire earth to ask a slightly more specific question, if I may. What was it like, since we don't have your co-writer director with us? Is there something you think she might want to tell us about the film? And can you talk a little bit about your working relationship and kind of that dynamic?
Well, and I have worked, and this is actually the only film we did together. And as I said, it was 6 years in which we started as friends, and then it developed to really and such an interesting relationship, and I learned a lot from her. And I think each time one of us maybe wasn't sure about something, wasn't really maybe keen to do something, the other one would take control and say, "Hey, we're doing this," and and pulling each other, and actually like giving each other different different approaches, because we're not the same person. Each one of us is a mother, but this is not the only thing you can say about us. So each one of us has had a different view over things, and we needed to find a way to convince one another, and it was really interesting.
So on the issue of scripting the film, so you're both credited as writers, and writing can mean different things depending on the documentary. And actually, like, as I was watching this, I had to keep going back and checking, is this a documentary? Is this a documentary? It felt like a docudrama. So it makes me very interested to hear like how much of it was scripted ahead of time and how you managed that.
It was the script changed many times as you know.
So you did you fully script it, or did you just have kind of an outline of what you were hoping for, like as you were following Ravit and some of the other volunteers?
We had an outline. We knew we wanted to show, and we did know that we wanted to show the relationship between the baby and the volunteer. But then Ravit's story took us somewhere else, and we understood that there's more to it in her life, and we wanted to like different things happen in these years. So each time we said we tried to focus on different aspects. Maybe it was really adopting, and maybe it was finding her someone to be with, and suddenly her father died. So everything changed as we went, but we knew that we wanted to show her getting a baby and leaving the baby, and seeing something she's going through, not only the baby but her as well.
So were you actually shooting shooting footage over that entire 6-year period?
No.
What was your shooting window?
It was about 1.5 years. And did some, mostly 1.5 years or maybe 2 years. And before that, we just collected the information and talking to people, met so many.
I could sense, like in watching it, I felt like there was a kind of longitudinal power in this film. Thinking of like really famous docs like the Up series, that follow people over a very long span of time. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, documentaries where it's like, it's about a single moment, like an event or, something that you're trying to portray where you're just shooting over a few days. This one, I knew that you had to be filming over a longer period of time because things, events were happening. She was responding to things like her father's death, her plan to, perhaps be a foster parent. And I think that really brings a particular impact to a film where we know this is a real person and we're following what happens in his or her life over a period of time. one of the first docs, that I saw when I was younger that really showed me the power of, the longitudinal approach is Hoop Dreams, which I still love. It's a 1990s American documentary that follows like high school basketball players over like a 4 to 5 year period. And it's so powerful. And I feel that that comes into your film. And actually, I would be interested in part 2 because I mean, at first when I'm sitting with Ravita, I'm like, well, okay, what's she doing? Okay, she's holding babies. But then, as you say, there's layer after layer. And it's a reminder of how complex each of our lives are. And I'm just got a message that we're at the 5-minute mark. So I do want to get to this, what I consider an important question. All these questions I wrote are so important, everyone. So your film's very respectful study of Ravit is itself a form of female empowerment because it puts, a 49-year-old single woman and her perspective at the center of a compelling narrative documentary. And as you've mentioned, as we were talking before the session started, it was also made by women. So in addition to female audiences, what is your sense of men's interest in and response to this film? If you've attended any screenings in person, were the audiences balanced in terms of gender?
It's true that maybe more women, but also men. Many men come to see the film, and they also cry. They cry. They come out and they tell us how it affected them and how moved they were. So not only women, I feel. I think anyone can relate to this. Motherhood is not only for women.
Oh, that's such a good point. Yes. and fatherhood is not only for men. And I think for me, a big theme of the festival that's been emerging is that any kind of transformative change needs, we all need to buy into it and be participating. So I know sometimes, female film festivals or female films struggle to find male audiences. And so I was just curious about your film. And it's really nice to hear that you've, actually seen a lot of men, watching it and responding positively to it. I think, that's a wonderful indicator of where things are going. And I feel like our executive director, Nikki Korda, has done such a great job at outreach and making sure that we do have an audience that includes both/all genders, no matter how people identify. And it's a women's film festival, but of course that's for people, projects that involve people who identify as female. And that can be, of course, a range of individuals now. But I have this sense maybe that, men are opening their hearts to female stories, maybe in a way that hasn't always been the case in the past. I don't know. How do you see that as a filmmaker?
I can agree that I think our producer is male, and he, as first thing he heard about our story, when we came to him, we wanted that he will join us. He immediately related. He immediately said, "Wow, it reminds me of my grandmother's story, how she was a baby and they didn't choose." It brought up so many memories and emotions that he related. So I think today, really, men have the power to relate to women issues and to relate.
That's fabulous. And I appreciate that insight because it really gives me hope for this moment that we're in. I feel that we are at kind of a pivot point in terms of where the industry is going globally for docs and for narrative fiction. We are in our final minute and I'm getting pushed to end the session. So is there any last word you'd like to have, particularly about what your next project will be, or already is?
Actually, we did have we spoke about maybe making a sequel to this film because
Sequel, yay, yay.
but we're just talking about it. We need to see, and this, especially in this time, Corona, COVID time. But yeah, Rovit is interesting. She's doing volunteering now with babies who come out of the hospital. Those babies who she hugged before, and she meets them afterwards in the new place they go to before they will be adopted, and she does other things as well.
That's fabulous. Well, I mean, I'd like to, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please conclude.
Maybe I still cannot promise, but this is and
Well,
there are different projects that Kinati is working on her projects. I'm working on mine. So
well,
maybe we'll see you. I hope to see you next year. Maybe visit.
we hope so. Yes, that would be lovely. And as we wrap up, I also just want to thank everyone who worked on Alone Together, including, very special interview subjects who shared their lives. Thank you so much, Ravit, and everyone else who participated in the film. And it's a wonderful moment for us to connect, not only through this documentary, but also as humans. So thank you. And thank you so much, Maya, for being here with us today. So I guess with that, I'm being told I need to close. So thank you so much and have a wonderful night, because now it's almost 10 o'clock your time. And best wishes to you, your family, and all of your colleagues on the film.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Of course. Farewell. Farewell for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.